Hi, I'm Matt McCourt, and welcome to US Metal TV, brought to you by usmetal.com. And tonight is part 3 of the Deen Castronovo story. Let's pick up where I left off. I think I left the band standing on stage at the Starry Night, and the next day, Steve Hanford, legendary drummer, he's known as the Slayer Hippie, and he's produced a lot of stuff. Steve died last May, and God rest him, and he asked if I wanted to join Mayhem. That was one of the offers, and I said yes. I was managing the villa, the ghetto apartments on Mississippi and Russell. They went for $100 a month, and that was what I was getting at. Angie and I worked at a gas station on Lombard and Woolsey, and we used to pass this place and I go, and if we lived over there instead of 45th and Broadway, we'd be almost at work. And in a couple of months, like everything I talk about, things happen, and I was the manager of this ghetto place with like 17 squatters I had to kick out. I walked around with a shoulder holster with my 45 and dressed like the Road Warrior, and that's how I got the people out of the place. It's like, you have to go now. And I told everybody my name was Boris, and which is what Boris Mastermnd is what this character's name actually is. After I joined Mayhem, and Dean and the Wild Dogs guys got the Michael Furlong, who was a pop star on Atlantic Records and American Bandstand. Very prestigious, but just way different than what we were doing. I joined Mayhem, and I managed these apartments with the meth lab up on the third floor, and everybody was fresh out of prison. It was a 24-hour party. But Mayhem practiced in one of the units, and we did gigs with Hyrax and Raw Power from Italy. Caden is the guy who is responsible for the Lemmy statue at the Rainbow Bar in Hollywood. And what a tribute. We did a record called Burned Alive that has an amazing album cover by a Dark Horse comic. And it's a great album. And it's a thrash, and I fit right in. They were kind of punk rock, and I was kind of punk rock, and I introduced Steve to my friend Tom Roberts, known as Pig Champion from Poison Idea, and they hit it off, and right after we recorded the record, he joined Poison Idea and took the rest of Mayhem, and I got offered this solo deal on Shrapnel Records. And so, here we go. Mike Varney said, hey, I love these songs. Why don't we try a different deal where you have a different image like King Diamond or Blackie Lawless, and don't call yourself Matt McCourt on the record. And I said, okay. Then what? And he goes, well, see if you can get Dean to play on it. And then, okay, great. So he hadn't been talking to Dean. He goes, meanwhile, I'll see if I can get Yngwie Malmsteen to play guitar, which he was unavailable, but Mike knew Yngwie was like my favorite guitarist ever. He was like the new guy. I urged him to get Yngwie over to the States as soon as I heard the demo. I go, that is the future of guitar. Everybody else is faking it. And in the same Guitar Player magazine column, there's a thing with Yngwie and Paul Gilbert, two of the most influential guys in the entire legacy of post-Van Halen guitarism. And so Yngwie wasn't available, but Paul Gilbert, I hooked up with him, and he sent me his demo, which ended up being the Racer X songs, and somehow he had his own thing going. And then the third choice, which was like, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, was Kurt James, who took Yngwie Malmsteen's place in the band Steeler and plays just like Yngwie. And Alan Holdsworth and all these amazing guys. He just blows my mind too. So I said, okay, well, let's go with him. He's a Hendrix freak, and he's a cool guy, hippie guy. And so he said, well, okay, well, what am I going to offer Dean? To play on a record? And he said, no. I'll tell you what, Tony McAlpine needs a drummer, and so I'll get him a paid gig with Tony McAlpine's band, and he'll get paid recording sessions for Shrapnel Records. He did Marty Friedman and, a whole bunch of them. And so I said, okay, well, how's he going to move? He's got to, look, we'll put extra money in your budget if you want to spend your money to move Dean down to California. And I said, Yeah, because he's got to get out of Portland. He's got to go nowhere here. And it just wasn't going to happen. And I knew once, and Dean told me a long time ago, he told me this. He says, man, I mean, he was like 17 or 18 years old. Man, I just hope I can make it before I burn out. And so I think, let's see, 1986, which was about 4 or 5 years after we did Wild Dogs. So Dean was like 24, 25, prime time, man. He moves to the Bay Area. That's Katati, upper Bay Area. Plays with Tony McAlpine, records a bunch of stuff with Marty Friedman and other records. And McAlpine was practicing across the hall for Bad English, you know, with John Waite and Jonathan Cain from Journey and Neil Schon. And bingo. They made a click. A guy I knew drove a box truck full of all Dean's stuff and all of his drums. He had these TDI drums made by Tad Smiths, and they were huge, like, you know, super long. They looked like 55-gallon drums. All of his drums, he took the heads off and put macaroni and cheese and boxes and bags of cereal and all this food stuff. And him and Sean Dawson moved to the Bay Area. He was practicing with Tony McAlpine. I got an offer to play with Bad English. And I'd been down to the studio after this. I went to go pick up a bass that Paul Chandler had given me as an endorsement deal, and I was also I was endorsing DiMarzio pickups. That lasted a long time, man. They sent me I went down there, and that's when I met Marty Friedman and Jason Becker, who were working on their albums, their solo albums on Shrapnel that Dean played on Marty Friedman's, and that was pretty cool. That was a wild trip, man. We took our cat, Barnaby, and rented a car and flew. And I mean, literally flew down there. This was the height of the... Dean played with Bad English, and he went from like $0 to $500,000 in a year. Mark Miller said, "Hey, I saw Dean at the NAMM show." And really? Yeah. He's playing with Bad English. That's how I found out. And I go, wow, what's Bad English? He said, you know, John Waite from the Babies and Jonathan Cain. He was from Journey and the Babies and Neil Schon, and it's a big deal. And he's walking around with Neil Schon. Like, cool. As he should be, because, you know, Dean was one of those rare talents, like I said in the other videos, that, you know, he's destined for something as soon as he's out of the chute. He just needed to be someplace where the right people could help him out. His mom had moved to New York and was working for a record label, I think the one that Kiss was on. I think he tried out for Kiss. Roscoe Vossi. And, did I say that right? Anthony Drago. Yeah, everybody knows him in Italy, but he was getting paid huge money to go hang around, and whether they played or not, he got paid every week. And he joined Ozzy Osbourne and was on the Osmosis record. And I mean, there's so many. I'm not going to waste your time listing all this stuff. But after Ozzy, well, there's Hardline in there, and with Neil Schon also. And Hardline was a great album, man. The Gioeli brothers and Todd Jensen from Portland, Oregon, and Dean on drums. And, well, hey, here's a clip of Hardline at a sound check in Salem. That week, Kip and me and Buko followed Hardline on tour. Hardline had Mr. Big on the headliner, and the Electric Boys on the opening act from Holland. Then my mom bought our new car and said, "Hey, can I use my car? Can we drive?" We followed them from Seattle and all through California, and we got to we missed the show at Sacramento, and none of the hookers that we talked to knew where any of the stuff was. They must have been imports. Yeah, because that was all that was out in the street when we were driving around. We were a little late, but that's when Wendy's had a salad bar and a baked potato bar, and we didn't have those in Oregon. It was quite novel. So we tried to find a hotel room in the city, in San Francisco, and there's nothing. We drove all the way back up. We came across the Bay Bridge, and then nothing. And we kept going. Everything was no vacancy. Finally, way up north by Santa Rosa, there was a hotel, and I thought, well, if nothing else, we'll just sit here in the parking lot and fall asleep, because we were tired. It was late, and there were some sailors out there, and drunken sailors. Everybody loves a drunken sailor, right? So I said, "Are you guys checking out?" "Yeah, we just checked out, so there's a room available." "Yeah, we just turned our key in, or otherwise you could go ahead and have it. We didn't sleep there, we just drank." Okay. One guy had a rubber duck around him. I remember, an inflatable duck. And so I went in there and did the old Keith Moon thing. "Dear boy, I'll take a room. I know you have one available." "Well, we can't give that to you." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because it has to be sanitized and clean." I said, "That's all right. We don't care. We need to sleep. And so I'll offer you $50 on top of the room fee. This $50 does not exist if I give it to you." Finally, they broke down. They rented us a room. We went in. We went to sleep. We got up the next day. Went swimming in the pool right outside. It was awesome. And then went to the Marin Center, where Dean and Hardline were playing, and every rock star in the Bay Area was there. The Night Ranger guys and the Appice, how do you say it? Carmen Appice and Vinny Appice. They were there. Sammy Hagar. My mom was outside talking to Neil Sean's parents in the back, and this Ferrari rips up at the road and drives across the lawn and parks it, and he gets out, and it's Sammy Hagar. And Sammy Hagar comes down and is talking to my mom and the Sean's, Neil Sean's parents. Buko got a picture of it somewhere that exists, and I would love to have it, but he hasn't been able to find it. But that was really cool. My mom was just like, wow, Sammy Hagar. Yeah. And they did the show, and while we were at the sound check, their manager, road manager, said, "Look, go over to the executive suites and tell them you're with a tour, and you'll get a good deal." I mean, we got a smashing deal because it was like, some sort of super rate. Thanks to Yngwie and their road manager, Hardline, we stayed in some pretty good places, cheap. And so we went to the show, and it was great. And Sammy Hagar came up on stage and jammed with Neil Sean. And then after the show, me and Buko went to a studio, and I think in Sausalito, to go see Mike Varney. And it was owned by Sandy Pearlman. It's the studio that Joe Satriani recorded the Surfing with the Alien record, and also Blue Oyster Cult was their home studio. And Sandy Pearlman produced Blue Oyster Cult, and the guy that was there was the grandson of Elaine Schnitzer. And he was one of the engineers, one of the guys that recorded the Blue Oyster Cult live On Your Feet or On Your Knees record. And when he found out we were from Portland, oh man, it was great. Varney was listening to tapes, and Sandy Pearlman was listening to them. They had these boxes that people send them tapes. Mike Varney would look at the picture, and if the picture looked goofy, he wouldn't even listen to it. Sandy Pearlman would look at it, and if the tape was cheap, he wouldn't listen to it. I learned a lot that night. Don't send a picture and spend money on the tapes. This is the days of sending cassettes, right? So we hung out there, and this guy named Joelly, his dad was in the Rascals. And I It was awesome. That whole day was great. All roads, the road leads to Journey, and that's where he stayed for like, what, decade? And once the singer that didn't work out, I knew Deen could sing the whole set because he's amazing. Deen can do really pretty much anything. Deen joins Journey, and people, they would come to town. Like, Deen he was always coming up to Portland saying, "Hey man, let's do a gig." And so we had a side band this whole time through the 90s called Mrs. Beasley's Nightmare with Kip Dorr on guitar and John Donnelly on bass. He's one of the first guys that died, and me singing. And we'd do like covers like Alice in Chains and then Wild Dogs and Dr. Mastermind. We played at the Bone, we played at Eli's, and nobody showed up. But when he was in Journey and they were going to come to town, people I don't talk to normally would call me up and say, "Hey, buddy, are you going to the show tonight?" It's like, "What show?" "Journey." No. Why? I said, "Well, first of all, because of calls like this is like the 10th one, and I don't talk to you. You're trying to get me to see if I can get you a free pass. Buy a ticket, cheapskate, and sit in the rafters like everybody else." But no, I'm not going. I'm not really a huge Journey fan. Jeff and I was working with Johnny Limbo in the Lugnets for a few years, and Jeff was a truck driver and monitor engineer. And he said, "Hey, I got a call from Deen," and he said, I put you on the list." Well, he actually put Jeff and Al Seahorn on the list, but Al couldn't go, so Jeff asked me if I wanted to go. And so we go to the Moda Center. It was the Rose Garden then, and I was working as a stagehand then, so I had a pass to get in anyway. But we go to we drive in, and we find parking immediately, like front row, right next to the door in. I said, "This is a bad sign." And Jeff said, "Why?" I said, "Just trust me. This is too easy. It's a bad sign." We go in. We talk to the guy guarding the door, and he says, "Well, what's your names?" And he looks at this list, and Deen had like 60 people on the list. And he pays for every one of those. It's not free to the band. He pays for every one of those passes and tickets. Every seat has to be accounted for. So Deen is very generous anyway, but I mean, wow. So he looks, I said, "Can you check again?" And I go, "My name's not going to be on there, but Jeff's is," or, Al's, and no, neither one of you are on there. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. You have to track down the guy. It's a lot harder to do with the Moda Center. But I had my own, card to get in, like a credit card thing it's an ID checker. I said, "Look, I turned down a gig tonight to work the show to come here to be a guest." And he looks at he goes, "Oh, well, okay." We went and tried a different door and then came back to the same guy. He was an older guy. He goes, "Well, you guys don't look like you're going to be trouble, and let me write down your name. So if there is any trouble, I know where to find you." And it's okay. It was the one with the Theater of the Round. So we go in and we find seats. And Theater of the Clouds, that's where it was. And so it was like cut in half because they didn't sell the whole thing out. And so we watched the show. And that Michael Aguirre, the Italian guy, the first singer that was in the band, he was singing that night. He was really good. At the end of the night, I go, Jeff's going, "Well, let's leave." I go, "Screw that. We're going to go say hi to old Dino." And notice the look on his face when he sees us. So I go to the backstage door, and down there is Dave's brother, who is raging drunk. He's just completely blotto, man. And he's yelling, "This is the guy that got my brother wouldn't even be in this band if it wasn't for Matt. Matt!" And I love Dave. I love you, Dave. You're awesome. And Dave Castronovo. So Todd Jensen's trying to get in with this lanyard with passes, like, stacks of all these backstage passes from every band he's been in, like Alice Cooper and David Lee Roth and Hardline and all this other stuff. Dave just kind of wishes us through the security. Everybody on the stage was saying, "Hey, Matt, you didn't work tonight." "No, I'm a guest. I'm a ghost." I'm on the ghost list. And they escort us back to where the dressing rooms were, and Dean's holding court with like his 60 people, and I walk up to him and I tap him on the shoulder. Hey, man, thanks for getting us in. I appreciate that. And he turned around, and he must have dropped 10 pounds when he saw me. It all went to the floor. It's like, Matt, what are you doing here? Well, Al couldn't make it, so Jeff said, why don't I take his place? And I turned down working, so I might as well come here and say hi. So I didn't recognize any of the people in the guest room. And I mean, he paid a lot of money to have this guest room, and he paid a lot of money. He's a generous guy, like I said. He paid a lot of money for every ticket that everybody that had to have a ticket to get in. As Dean was coming up and recording, or you're trying to record, at Jeff's house during this time. It was 2002. So, yeah, Dean would pull up to Jeff's house on the top of Milwaukee at the Horton on the Hill house, and his Viper, bright yellow one, and he'd bring Kyle with him. Kyle's like 11. Kyle Castronovo is his son. Kyle is the most outstanding drummer. I mean, he really has the genes, the chops, and I mean, he plays in a band called Wednesday 13. And I saw them open for Alice Cooper. I mean, they were doing big time stuff before this COVID thing, and pretty amazing drummer, even at age 11. When Jeff and Danny and Dean were over looking at Jeff's cigar collection and his humid, or whatever those things that cigars are, and his wine collection, which I don't have any interest in that stuff, Kyle and I were playing the Wild Dog songs, and he'd do them front and back. I said, Jim, you were awesome. And, well, I didn't talk to Dean much after that, and I mean, in the bubble for years, right? And that must drive you crazy. I mean, it's great and all this stuff that everybody knows you, but also you pay for that, right? And I said, you can always go down and renegotiate your deal with the devil. So I think he did that sooner or later, eventually. And we've all seen the stories on the news, and my mom's going, is that Dean? I go, yeah. And he's looking better, and now he looks great, man. So he, after he did, everybody hits the bottom, and the first time you do that, it really wakes your ass up, or it doesn't, and it really woke him up. And he got out of that, and then I saw him with the guys from Night Ranger, or who was right? Kip Winger? What was that? What's that band? The Revolution Saints. I've got this problem where I got Bell's palsy last June, so I'm doing much better because my face was completely drooped in June, and I was paralyzed on this side. Not a stroke. I looked in a mirror once, and that's what happened. And then he was playing with this band called the Dead Daisies, and you don't hear a lot about them around here in Portland or anywhere else. But my friends in Europe, I've got a whole Facebook page. It's nothing but European friends. It's all for European people. Nobody local. And they all know who Dead Daisies are. They're not big fans, but they are on the radio so much you can't miss them. So I'm glad to see he's doing great. And I just saw a thing here where he was recording at Black Diamond Studios this last weekend. And the music that I heard, I think this is part of it. I'm not sure, because I'll get to this in a minute. It sounded great. It sounded like Journey, and Dean is singing, and that's what he should be doing. Dean has always been a guy like Dan Beeler from Exciter. He's a singing drummer and sings and plays amazing, like, Neil Peart style and all this stuff. But I'm glad to see he's finally, after all these years, he's the guy. And they should put his drum kit out in the front, not in the back. They should put it right up in the front. Because I noticed in Journey, they kept putting him back and back and back. They're like, you're going to be playing from backstage pretty soon, guy. He should be right up in front, Because, the show's right there, and I always loved it. He told me that other bands he played with encouraged him not to show off. In fact, Ozzy got a different drummer because he was too flashy and taking too much away from him. Sharon, actually, I think was the deal. But Lemmy says that Sharon Osbourne is no fun to work with. With Ozzy, though, everybody says that Ozzy was really funny and fun to hang out with. So it's always about looking successful and driving a fast car that you'll never be able to pay off. And, nobody knows any different if you lease it and you drive, they see around, oh man, hey, look at that guy's flash, Here we are today, 2021, and Dean's starting his own thing. I think it's called The Rise. And he's been writing songs. He definitely has a lifetime of inspiration. And I'm glad to see Dean doing that. And I want to wish you well, Dino. And Mom says hi. And, maybe the thing will lift and things will kind of go back to normal. And I know what it's like to play to half-empty rooms. At some of those gigs that Dean would come up and play with me in the Mrs. Beasley's Nightmare. Since none of us drank, the bartenders would, say, hey, do you mind if I close up, and go home because there's nobody here drinking. And I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time the bar closed when they got on stage. But So I'm Matt McCourt. This is US Metal TV. This is part 3 of the Dino thing, and I think I'm going to leave it here.